This video is about something I've been seeing in a couple of the finishing classes, and that is that where you place increases and decreases can really impact how easy it is to finish. And in this swatch that has not been blocked, I have placed some bar increases in the first and the last stitches. And if you are increasing and decreasing to shape a garment rather than, say, the edge of a shawl that is not going to be a finished edge, this is about the dumbest thing you can do. Because when you finish, where you want to finish is in the space between the selvage stitch and the next stitch using the horizontal bar. And you can see that where I've done this, it would be very difficult to find that horizontal bar. You actually could for this bar increase on this side, because you could pull up that horizontal bar, but it is going to distort the fabric. Okay, now in this example I've placed the bar increases a stitch in, and I would be able to finish these. I've got my selvage stitch, I've got my horizontal bars, I could pick up an edge, or I could seam it. Now it's really a problem on the left-hand selvage, because when you do use a bar increase, and the reason why I'm focusing on bar increases here is that it's generally the first increase that people use, and it's next to impossible to work a lifted increase in the first and last stitches because you can't reach down and get the loop. An M1 increase you definitely can, because you have to work it between the first and the second stitch anyway using that horizontal bar, so it's a moot point. But you can see how that distorts the edge where you've done that bar increase. Now in this case, notice that my bar increase where I did it correctly mirrors the other one. That is because when you work a bar increase and on the left side, you want to work it in the stitch before the stitch that you want to be left alone. So in this case, if I have the selvage stitch and then a column of stitches and then my little bar increases, I would work it in the third stitch, and that would happen. Now if you've done this on a garment, luckily, most of the time, if you're working a sweater from the bottom up, this is the only time you're going to be using increases like this, is on a sleeve, or you can hide it. But it is not going to be a pretty looking sleeve, and you are going to be extremely frustrated while doing it. Now, generally, you see this more in decreases, and unfortunately, where you see it is around the neckline, which is the most noticeable part of the garment. Now notice I've done a SSK on the selvage stitches here and the next stitch in, and I've done a knit two together over here. And if I were making a toy or something where this edge was not going to be finished, it was going to be a mouse ear or something, it'd be just fine. But trying to seam this, again, I would be seaming here, and then I'd get here, and what the hell, it's just going to be next to impossible. I'd probably wind up putting my seam in there, which is going to look awful, or worse, picking up stitches, and this is on a neckline most likely. It just looks awful, and it's a reason why people don't like finishing. They don't know where to finish. And I've got the same thing over here. I mean, where do I go next if I'm going to seam? Now here I have the selvage stitch, and it's very clear I work my seam next to those decreases. Now, I'll block these for my blog tomorrow so you can see them better, but again, always work your increases or decreases for shaping on a garment that's going to have those edges either sewn or have a band picked up on them, at least 1 or 2 stitches in. Think of it like the seam allowance if you were sewing. And if you're sewing, you always have a seam allowance of 5/8 of an inch. That's what your selvage stitch is.